I call Maggie Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is quite difficult to keep awake, actually, after a tedious dissertation like that one. That member has not, to my knowledge anyway, sat in on any of these reforms, has not actually sat in on any of the submissions, and seems to have a particularly poor grasp of the legislation, which is, let me say out loud, just in case you would benefit from this at the last moment, the Resource Management Act in its third reading. When we talk about the track record of governments, let's look a little bit at what Labour's contributed to the government, propped up by their pals, the Greens. This was in those long, dark years, the 9 years in the wilderness. There's a chihuahua yapping somewhere in the chamber, Mr. Speaker. Is that allowable? Anyway, in the exclusive economic zone, which is a piece of legislation which we passed late last year, it was very important that that very important piece of water be protected. Under 9 years of Labour and the Greens, what happened? There were 46 mining consents in our precious oceans. They did nothing to protect it. There was not a single regulation. There was not a single protection put down. That's bad enough. That's appalling. 46 consents granted. They made it worse, though. They compounded the problem because they then stood against what we put through. They voted against the Exclusive Economic Zone and Continental Shelf Environmental Effects Bill. So not only did they not protect it when they were in a position to, but they also stood against the actual protections that this government put in place. And I'm very proud of what we did there. It was important. A lot of stuff and nonsense and mythology has been spun by those on the opposite benches about the RMA. It's a fabulous piece of legislation, according to Planet Labour. 22 years old, nothing wrong with it. That isn't actually what Sir Geoffrey Palmer said a few weeks ago. He actually agrees with a lot of the things and a lot of the reforms that our Minister of the Environment, Amy Adams, has put through. And it would pay to pay attention to this, particularly that member who guffaws up the back, ruddy-faced and paying little attention. But when we looked at 234 submissions on the RMA, listened to 147 of them in Wellington and Auckland, a lot became clear. For example, Statistics New Zealand Business Operations Survey, they maintained that the RMA was expensive and it was time-consuming, that it was having a significantly bad effect on business performance. The business surveys cited the RMA specifically, saying that it had led to the uncertainty which in the past 2 years had led to the cancellation of projects worth potentially more than $800 million. The uncertainty had led to the cancellation of about 2/3 of these projects. Another 430 businesses cancelled projects, each worth more than $100,000. Again, they blamed the RMA processes. So when the lies, damn lies and statistics, which were quoted by a member with their head down over there a little bit earlier in the evening, very selectively looked at the statistics, they did not consider the lost opportunities, the people that were defeated by the RMA. Some businesses, can you believe it? It almost does beg a belief, have spent up to 25%, a quarter of their total expenditure, just on applying for resource consents. The lost opportunity costs of the RMA are truly appalling. So dispel some of that nonsense and mythology that we've been hearing. More than half of the resource consents applications are cancelled in the pre-application stage due to uncertainty and time delays. These are the sort of problems that we were being confronted with as a nation. So we addressed them, we looked at them and we did something about it. Perhaps the most damning thing of all, only 3% of the businesses surveyed said that the current RMA enhanced their businesses. The others pointed to it as a roadblock and a problem that caused delays, and that's something that needs to be addressed. In 2007, there was an example which actually estimated that for a $10 million project, the cost of the delay per day was $2,200, which if you extrapolate that over 3 months, I know you're not too crash hot at the maths over there, but bear with me, a 3-month delay meant an additional $140,000. And if that delay extended out into 9 months, which is about the average time of the delay around RMA consents, those costs blew out to nearly $600,000. So who is the winner there? There's not the time to go into the Environment Court. People say it's being diminished. It continues to have a very important role in interpreting and applying policy and safeguarding the rigour of planning and consenting processes and the quality of incomes. What it does not need to do is determine values or policy, which is the role of communities and their elected representatives, namely the Council and the Government. Mr Speaker, I commend this bill to the House wholeheartedly.
I understand the next call is a split call. The Honourable Ruth Dyson, 5 minutes.
Mr Speaker, that's correct. It's very hard after you hear that member to really